Do that. Well, hi everybody. Welcome back to the show. This is Lisa Tamati here, and I am with Matt Calman. Matt, how are you doing?
Oh, good. Thanks, Lisa. Kia ora. Thank you for having me on.
Oh, it's very, very exciting to have you. Matt is a fellow New Zealand author. And for those of you who don't know, he has written the book, The Longest Day, very recently, telling his life story. And I'm going to share Matt's story, or Matt's going to share his story with us. There it is, The Longest Day, for those watching on YouTube. A must-grab book. Matt, I'm really excited to delve into your story a little bit today, into your background and how this book came about and your history. So give us a bit of a rundown on who you are and where you come from and your family and so on, and then let's dive into your story.
Well, I'm 43 now. I was born in Masterton, in a very small town, Masterton. My dad worked there as an insurance man, then got transferred to Christchurch when I was about 3 years old. So yeah, I don't know Masterton very well, but they had their roots there, a lot of friends there, and then we put down some roots in Christchurch, and that's where I grew up. So I spent all the way through to my sort of early 20s in Christchurch, and then I met my wife, Ranui, when I was 19 and she was 17. She was just finishing up high school, took her to the ball, and knew pretty early on, actually, after I met Ranui, that she was going to be the one for me, which is, a bit of a fairy tale, really.
Yeah, it's very lucky.
Yeah. And so we're still together. We've got a couple of daughters now, 10 and nearly 7, 2 girls. And I've been at home with them for the last 9 years. So when our first daughter was about 7 months old, I left my job as a journalist. I'd been a journalist for a few years at the Dominion Post. Was living in Wellington at that time with my wife, where she started her legal career. She's now a partner at a sort of a good-sized law firm in Christchurch, and we're living the dream. But yeah, it certainly hasn't been a straight road. Life has its ups and downs, as you know, Lisa. I've read your book, and I've read about all your ups and downs, and pretty inspiring stuff.
Oh, thanks, Matt. Yeah, and I'm keen to delve into your story because I love people who share the real stuff, the stuff that isn't perhaps pretty, and the stuff that isn't glamorous, and the difficult times. And your story is certainly inspiring. So let's start where it all went wrong. Because this sounds like a fairy tale. You meet your beautiful wife, you have your loving kids, and life's going great. Where did things start to go wrong for you?
That's the incongruous thing about all of this, about depression, about how it doesn't discriminate. It touches people who have had wonderful life like I've had, and it touches people who have struggled. It doesn't, it's not really about how good your life is. Yes, from the outside, my life was picture perfect. 2 beautiful children, amazing wife. We don't want for anything. We're pretty comfortable financially. Live in a lovely house in Christchurch in a leafy suburb. Yet internally, for probably, it had been years, it was like a tap dripping, slowly dripping and building up in this internal struggle I was having with my identity, with my direction in life. There were a number of factors. There was some sort of, at the time I had my breakdown at the end of April 2017. I'd come off the back of a very stressful situation with someone who had kind of lied to us and taken a bit of money, and not a lot of money, but I took it very personally. Coming out of the back of that, I had some panic attacks late the year before. My first major panic attack was off the back of this situation when I started to realise that things weren't right. And so, but I've been in hindsight dealing with depression and anxiety, social anxiety, for most of my life. So before I knew what to call it, because I'd always, compared myself with other people, and you look at the worst case scenario, the worst drinker, the person who has suffered terrible mental illness, and there's a full range. Everyone's somewhere on the spectrum. So I never thought that I really had a problem with the time to fix or to try and address. So for years, this tap dripped and dripped and dripped. But it finally got to the point where I reached my breaking point and that's where the book really kind of begins. You know, that this was where my life kind of fell apart, and I was diagnosed with depression, something that 1 in 4 New Zealanders will experience in their lifetimes. It's very, very common. We don't talk about it, but from the time I had my breakdown, that was when I started to share and to reach out and actually address it properly.
Yep. And I mean, this is, you know, like, we do sometimes think that because I didn't, you know, live through this most horrific thing, therefore I don't have a right to be depressed, and you are depressed anyway. And that's really a dangerous thing, like you say, because then you don't address it, you don't look out for it. And, you know, having had depression myself and having been at rock bottom a number of times in my life, can totally relate to this feeling. So what actually, how did it manifest itself when it really crashed? And this is what usually happens. You have a big crash somewhere, eh?
Well, basically, it had been building up for months, weeks and months, really seriously, to the point where I was desperate and feeling really low on myself. I was really irritable, which is a number one symptom, and mainly men, like this anger where it's irrational. You don't really know what it's about, where it's come from, and it bursts out. And so, like, I was snapping at the kids and feeling really bad and apologising straight away. And then, and Ranu was sort of aware that things were a bit off, you know, but she didn't. I mainly hid it from everyone around me, and I was just internalising everything. So I was feeling all this mental strain, a lot of it very subconscious, and it was just building up on me, building up. And when it really crashed, my daughters had their cousins around for a sleepover, actually, and so I was under a bit of pressure there, and I wasn't feeling good in myself. And I kind of had a bit of an outburst in front of all the kids in the kitchen over breakfast. I went upstairs, and I was just sort of lying back on my bed, really searching for what was going on. I was feeling very desperate, and then I looked over and I saw a vision, and I'm actually in my bedroom now. I'm doing this podcast, so I looked over at the ensuite doorway, and a vision of myself hanging in the doorway, dead.
Wow! Flashed
into my. It wasn't even in my mind. It was like a hallucination. It was so vivid and real that it just scared me awake to the real problem that was happening.
Wow.
And it was very frightening. It flashed up and then it was gone, you know, very quickly. And I described this in the book. And that was the moment I reached out. I already had an avenue for help. I'd been seeing a counsellor for the panic attacks I'd had the year before, but I got through that, sort of put the Band-Aid on that, which was great. But hadn't really dealt with the main thing, which was this depression that was coming. And so I reached out for her and called out for my wife. And from that moment, there was no more facade of being okay. And it had all come down, and it was just released. You know, it was just.
How is that for a man? I know, like, you know, women generally have a slightly perhaps easier time of sharing their emotions, and, you know, how is it for you know, good Kiwi bloke to open up about something like this, and, you know, even to write about this afterwards? Is that quite, you know, like, difficult? And how's that been? And how's it been received?
I think for me, it maybe was a little bit easier for me than for maybe other men who don't have an outlet. I'd been a writer, you know, for a long time, a journalist, freelance for a long time. I've been writing a blog about my life at home with the children in the early days, the ups and downs of life, a very honest blog about parenting, and which was pretty entertaining for people and serious. You know, I touched on some serious topics of miscarriage and grief and the stresses of being a parent and the identity of being in the workplace and then coming home and not having that anymore. And then when I gave up alcohol in 2016, I'd started blogging in the same vein as a good friend of mine, Lotta Dan, who has written books about her sobriety and heads up the website Living Sober, which I joined. I'd done an article for the Drug Foundation on her, And she inspired me one of the people that really inspired me to give up drinking and just see, you know,
Awesome.
get rid of that depressant.
Yes, exactly.
Take that away. But you see, taking that away brought the mental health stuff to the fore that was already bubbling away. Yep. I no longer had alcohol to kind of put the Band-Aid on the problem. Had to deal with it. So this is a very common thing for people who give up alcohol. They have to kind of deal with life in the raw and without that thing.
Without a support.
Kind of help them. So I'm probably losing sight of the question now, which often happens with me when I go on and on. But so I have been blogging I've been doing this daily blog under the pseudonym Soberman365. And actually, if you Google Soberman365, the blogs are still up online. I blogged for a year, the first year of sobriety, but about 7 months in, it became a blog more about depression and about the struggles I was having facing up to that stuff. I'd already had the panic attack, and that started writing about that. And then I had my big crash, and I stopped writing for a period of probably at least a week or a week and a half, where I was just trying to get through and getting through each moment, really. Yeah. And I wasn't able really to do anything. You know, I was stripped back, and I couldn't drive. I couldn't do much more than lie on the couch and just try and get through the day. And so when I started writing again, I re-entered the blog, talking about the depression. So being open about it had already happened. So when I decided to write the book, you know, I knew that writing as honestly as possible was really important. So you don't just talk in generalities and let people fill in the gaps. I've got my experience. I'm not an expert on depression, but I'm an expert on my own depression. And in that way, you know, there's this universality of it. Everyone has a very unique experience and different ways that they can cope and get through it. But I put my roadmap down in the book to help other people, build their own roadmap.
So you've come through this time, and I know that let's move into the part of the story where it's called The Longest Day for a reason. What happened there?
Oh, so in February 2018, so I'm through the worst part of the depression, the real early days when I'm getting on the medication and things, I'm getting back to functioning and my head's clearing, the fog's lifting.
Awesome.
And I'm starting to look for the challenge, the next thing that I can do, because basically I stripped all responsibility. I just stopped. I was being at home. It was actually easier for me, and I don't know how people who work do this, but Ranui was able to take all that pressure off me, and I could just work on my recovery.
Wow.
And so then I was looking for the next thing to actually do, the next challenge, and my friends were finishing the Coast to Coast, which is a race that goes from the west coast of New Zealand, Kumara, Serpentine Beach, and then it goes all the way across the country, over the big mountain, and then you're down the river, down the Waimat, and then you're cycling back to Christchurch, 70k last bike ride into this terrible headwind on the straightest road in New Zealand, longest, straightest road in New Zealand, South Air Road, and you're finishing at New Brighton. Used to finish at Sumner back in the day. Steve Gurney was one of the famous, Kathy Lynch, all these famous people, amazing. Braden Curry, Sam Clark now is the legend of the race at the moment, 4-time winner. And this most iconic race encapsulated beautifully between one side of the country and the other. My friends were finishing, and I decided to go out for the first time ever to see the finish of this race. I've lived in Christchurch most of my life, always been kind of captivated by this race, never been physically there. This is the mistake I made. I went to the race. You go to this race and you get drawn into the race and you get inspired by all these amazing people. Half of them don't look like athletes at all.
Exactly.
But they're fit. They've prepared
yes.
within an inch of their lives, and they are all finishing this race. You see what it means to them. You see on their faces the struggle, the joy, the hardship, the just getting over all these little struggles along the way to get across the island. And it's not a sure thing. You start this race and you don't know what's going to happen. No. You can prepare for everything, but stuff gets chucked at you. And this is just like, it's a perfect metaphor for life, this race. So I've seen my friends finish. I see Sam Clark actually finish. He finished about half an hour before my friends, because the one-day people, you either do it in 2 days or 1 day, for people who don't know about this race. The 2-day people start on the second day. The 1-day people start on the second day of the race. The winner And the elite people, they pass a lot of the tail end of the 2-day field. So the slower people. And so Sam Clark storms home. I see the winner of the race. I see my friends finish. I see them embraced by their families. They run the last bit with their kids. And I'm like, I want a bit of this. This is for me. So I decided, I left the race, and I'm biking back to my house 10 k's away in St. Martin's. And as I was biking home, I already knew I was going to sign up in 2019, that this would be the vehicle I would use to practice doing things differently in my life, to approach challenges differently, because a lot of my problems have been, I've been so hard on myself for things that I'd tried or not tried. I'd mainly been a spectator on the sidelines of my own life, wanting to do some of these things and thinking, no, that's not for me, because God, I know I couldn't do that. And I decided, right, bugger, I'm going to do it. If my friends can do this, I can do this. Yeah. And I immediately knew that this was the vehicle for my book, because I'd always wanted to write a book since I was a little kid. So it was the perfect storm.
Wow. In sport, you know, like, I mean, you and I have got different but similar stories, really.
Yeah, I'm less of the elite. I'm sort of, I would now say I'm a little bit higher than a weekend warrior, but
I'm not
kind of just hanging under that elite level.
Yeah, well, that's the funny thing, Matt. I'm totally not elite, and never have been. All I've ever done is work for 25 years at something and got, you know, halfway good at it. And
wasn't that it though, isn't it? Yeah, it's the process, eh?
But you know, like, as far as ability, and like, you know, you put me in a race with you. If I had to go for a jog for you, you'd be like, oh, for crying out loud, come on, hurry up. My husband does it every day. You know, like, I'm slow. But that doesn't matter, eh? It's the journey that you go on the inside that's really what's important. And your story actually reminds me of Charlie Engel's story a little bit, except he was much more extreme, old Charlie. Charlie is he's the one that ran right across the Sahara, and he's a good friend.
Oh, yeah.
Absolute legend of a dude.
Amazing.
And his story was much more alcohol and drugs. So he took our stories to the other end of crazy, but on both ends of the scale. Crazy.
We are on the spectrum, eh?
But this theme resonates through so many of our lives, and when we take up a sport that is hugely challenging, whether it's the coast to coast or Death Valley or doing something crazy, it is the hardest thing you've ever done, but at the same time, it's the best, most rewarding experience, and it changes your perception of who you are. I mean, I remember even like when I met my husband, at the beginning, he was coming to me for running coaching, and, you know, he wanted to do this charity event running 27 Ks in full BA. He's a firefighter, in full kit, you know, their yellow plastic suits with full BA for charity. And he wanted to know about running in the heat. So who better to ask, right? Comes to me, and, you know, we get teach him and coach him, and he does that, and he kills it, raises lots of money. Awesome. And he always thought that ultramarathon runners, you know, had to be special types of people with super talents. And when he started to get to know me, to realize, hang on, there's nothing special about this chick. She's just bloody minded. And it realized that, hang on, I could probably do this. And then his life, you know, he's gone on to do lots of ultras and so on. And this story I've had over and over and over and over again, because we set ourselves limitations of what we're capable of, don't we? And then we think we can't overcome them. And you saw in your friends, who you considered perhaps equals to you, that they could do this. And therefore, that was a gateway for you to say,
absolutely. And I think also, like, you know, that early on, when I knew that I wasn't going to be able to do the coast to coast until the end, you know, till I turned up. So,
exactly. Yeah.
So it's not 243 kilometres across a mountain and across the country and down the river. It's a million steps. And so you just start walking towards it. And then, and that way, it's all that process stuff. So, and that was also a massive antidote to the depression, is like, depression really does, I mean, they say, the old saying goes that depression lives in the past and regrets and in the things that you've done and things you're holding on to. Anxiety lives in the future and worries about what's going to happen up ahead. Yeah. And I had both of those things going on. So the coast to coast in training, like, you know, you've got to be in the moment when I've described this many times, hurtling down Evans Pass at 70 k's an hour on your bike. There's potholes all over the place. it's very much you really need to be in the moment. So the coast to coast training draws the past and the future into the present, and then so you are just soaking up that experience. Like in the past when I trained, I would often be beating myself up about, God, I wish I was better, and I'd have pain in my body and I think, God, I wish I wasn't hurting, and all this stuff, you know, and I'd be just fixated on this little rigid small goal of I have to run a certain time in my half marathon. I always wanted to break an hour and a half so I could consider myself a good runner. I was like, well, okay, a lot of people would have killed to do my best time of an hour 31, whatever it was. And so, you know, I never quite made that, and maybe one day I will. It doesn't matter to me now. It's really more about the journey, because like all that time I spent berating myself and being so hard on myself, and then I wouldn't reach the goal, and then I would be like, oh, that's just another reason why I'm not good enough. You know, all that, you know that stuff. Well, a lot of people think like this, and like I thought like this all my life. But the first thing I had to fix when I was recovering from my breakdown was my relationship with myself. So you talk about you need to like yourself. That is really important. Like, but to really truly like yourself and say I'm okay is so powerful. And it is just a mindset tweak. It's just a shift in mindset to the point of from that moment on, you don't care about all that external stuff. You don't care about messing up. You don't care about falling out of your boat. So from that point on, once I fixed my relationship with myself and I went into this training, like if I'd been the old Matt, I would have fallen out of my boat and I would have packed it all up and said, fuck it, I'm not going to do it. Oh, sorry. I hope you don't have to edit that out. And it carried me through the year, because embracing making mistakes and knowing that it was all a learning process, and nothing's perfect. My two races I've had at Coast to Coast, neither of them were perfect. No, but
there is no such thing.
I loved every minute of both races. The one which is encapsulated in the book, and then the one that I did earlier this year, the best experiences of my life, because you know I've now gained this massive community of people. I'm so connected now to hundreds and hundreds of people that do this race.
Yes,
it's opened my life up. Instead of like me going, God, I wish I had more friends. I wish that I had more deep friendship in my life. All that stuff was there all along, but still I wasn't being a very good friend to myself. I didn't feel I deserved it.
Yep.
Now that I know that I'm okay, and I realise that, and I'm embracing that, like everything else has just improved. So I still struggle with depression. In fact, 2 days ago I really crashed again. Like, and it had been building up subconsciously. My lockdown experience has been like a dream compared to a lot of people's, and like my kids have been so wonderful. But I need that space. I need the alone time, and I need the time to just rest that, you know, when the kids are at school. If I'm not doing well, then I say, right, it's okay for me to rest because I need to do that. Or there's certain strategies I put in place, and I haven't been able to do that. Yep. So it built up to the point where it just all came out, and I was like, the irritability and the anger and the just feeling so low, and just the brain fog was back. But I've been here before, lived experience. I know it passes. And then yesterday I signed up and did a yoga class at 9 a.m. to just get my day rolling in the right way. And just, like it's stressed. Like I'm homeschooling. I'm not a teacher. I'm homeschooling my kids here. Like I'm trying to be really relaxed about it.
You're not alone in this battle. I think there are many parents sitting out there going, "Hell yeah, I get you."
Hey, folks, do your best, eh? Like it doesn't matter really. The bigger picture is that you're okay.
Yeah.
And that everyone's happy, and that
But in the moment, you know what? And what I find powerful about that is that sometimes people like you've written a book. I've written the 3 books. People think you've got it all together now. You've written about it and you're all together and you're on top of it, and nothing could be further than the truth. We're all on a journey, and as you said before, there's a spectrum, and there's we're all improving our mental health. And I've been doing a lot of study lately on functional genomics and looking at genes and your predisposition to certain ways of how long adrenaline stays in your body, how fast the dopamine is processed, all of these chemical things that actually have an influence, which I'd love to talk to you about actually separately on that topic.
Yeah.
Once you start to understand your genes, I think that'll and what you can do to help support that, that will be a really another great thing to have in your toolkit. But
yeah, toolkit, love it.
Yeah, toolkit. We need toolkits. This is a toolkit.
Yeah.
Like every time I go through a horrible experience and hard times, I really have a little bit more that I can use. It can either break me, and there have been things that have nearly broken me, and where I thought I was broken and that was it, but managed to stand up. And then when you do stand back up, you've got another tool that you've been able to overcome. And this is why this story is so powerful. And I really encourage people to go and get the book, The Longest Day. Mine's on its way, and I'm looking forward to diving into it and getting into the story. And really, if this interview, you guys sitting out there listening to this, if this has resonated with you, what's Matt saying, and you think that this could help, go and grab that book, The Longest Day, check it out, see what Matt's all about, and see if there's something in there for you that can help you. We write these books because we're just sharing our life stories. And we're not experts necessarily, but the value lies in being open, sharing honestly, in giving other people a new perspective on the crap that they're going through. Because sometimes you cannot see the forest for the trees when you're in the middle of it. You can't see. And another.
You think it's just you, right?
Yep.
That your experience is unique, but it is really quite universal. And the more you share about what's happening for you, then you're giving other people permission to feel connected, but also to share about back to you. Like, so you get back what you reflect out. And I've shared what's going on with me with a lot of people, perfect strangers, and like within 20 seconds of meeting a perfect stranger, I've gotten really good at being able to just sort of segue into a real deep conversation. And that's really wonderful, actually, because we're all sort of wandering around the planet aimlessly, and then we collide with each other, and we can make these really kind of amazing connections. And you don't have to be the best friend of the person. You leave them, you might never see them again, but you've both felt quite special, and then
you feel connected. And like going around being, we have to, with our professional hats on and at work and so on, be a certain way and so on.
Well, I don't have to, because I'm a stay-at-home dad, so I'm the most unprofessional person.
But this is the thing, and this is why I think we're both, we're both captains of our own ship, because I don't go to work either. I work my ass off, but I don't go to work. Is that I can be who I am, and that is the most precious thing to me. And I can be the real person and not the person that, people want me to be. At least most of the time, you can just be you, and you can connect. And this is what the other thing that sport does. And when you're out doing the coast to coast or an ultra marathon somewhere, you go through so much shit in that period of time, and so much hardship and so much pain and so much doubt and so much whatever, and the preparation and everything, that the person that's running next to you or your crew or whatever the case may be, they're going through it with you and they're experiencing it. And that creates a bond that is deeper than what the normal bonds when you just go to have coffee with your friends, and it's like, when soldiers go to war together and they come back, they have a bond that I don't think we as outside people can ever actually understand, because they've gone through the crap together. And there is a beauty in that, even though it can be hard at the time, there is a beauty in that as well. And having those deep connections with other humans is a real human need. And, we sort of sometimes think we can be lone wolves, and we can, I used to definitely try and be the lone wolf, and I don't need anybody. And it was only because I was hurting, it was only because I didn't have that connection that I really sought and needed. And you do dumb things then, Matt, I know you've got an appointment to get to, and I've got another coaching session to do. I would really like to continue this conversation, maybe in a second part or a little bit later on, because I think it's something that needs to be really explored. So where can people buy the book? Where can they find out about you and your blog and all the other work that you're doing, Matt?
So the book's published by Allen and Unwin. I did hear from them that while they're not fulfilling orders at the moment, but when that starts back up again, you can order it online. You just Google The Longest Day, Matt Calman, and all the online links pop up. You can get it for Kindle on Amazon and for e-reader on ebooks.com, which is another instant way to be able to read it in the lockdown. And a lot of people I've heard have done that, So,
ebooks.com. And do you have a website, Matt, that you personally have?
Yes, mattcalman.com, so mattcalman.com.
Okay, we'll
And there's a link there actually to buy the book.
Exactly. Yeah.
And plenty of information. You can see all my photos from my racing and falling out of kayak days, which will continue.
It's all right. I wouldn't even know how to sit in one of those race ones.
Oh, you should. Oh, you haven't lived until you've sat in a kayak for the first time. My God.
Oh God, that's so scary. That's so scary. Yeah. Hey Matt, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom today. I really appreciate it. It's been an honour to have you on and to meet another fellow author, and doing cool stuff in the world. So thank you very much for your time today.
Oh, thanks so much. It's been great.